Balake? Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is back, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day's a great day not to be in a cult. Guys, it is a bad time to be a cult leader. It is a terrible time to be a cult leader. It's tough out there for a cult leader, especially if you're the leader of the international family-destroying human trafficking cult called Scientology. Yes, that Scientology. Tom Cruise's Scientology. The subject of today's video, this is actually a bit like coming full circle. There's been yet another lawsuit filed that is going to bring Scientology squarely into the crosshairs of public scrutiny for their unbelievably destructive policies and practices. Very similar to what happened in the Danny Masterson trial, where Scientology wasn't actually on trial, but the trial was very, very much about Scientology. Not just because Danny Masterson was a Scientologist, is a Scientologist in good standing, but because Scientology's practices, their beliefs and their practices that cause them to be an organization that protects and covers up for abusers, sex offenders, people who perpetrate child SA. Those policies and practices, and actually just the fundamental beliefs that Scientologists have that lead to this behavior, were very much part of why it took 20 years to get Danny Masterson in front of a trial. And those exact same beliefs and policies and practices are going to come into focus on this lawsuit that has been filed against a very well-known Scientology private school called the Delphi Academy. Now, when I say this has come full circle, it is because it was almost exactly 11 months ago that I did a video called Scientology School Covers Up Horrific Crimes. And the star of that video was a very well-known Scientologist named Karen Dale, who's the head of the Delphi Academy of Los Angeles. And in that video, I made public for the first time information about a horrific cover-up of child SA at the Delphi Academy of Los Angeles. And believe it or not, me mentioning the Danny Masterson trial, I can't even believe how some of these dots have connected. The prosecutor in the Danny Masterson trial, the first trial, the second trial, was a deputy district attorney named Reinhold Mueller. Now, the SA, the child SA that was covered up at the Delphi Academy, the perpetrator of that child SA, he started abusing kids at the Delphi Academy of Los Angeles. Karen Dale found out about it. Instead of reporting Karen Dale to the authorities, instead of Karen Dale reporting Randy to the authorities, I'm Randy Jackson. I'm going to get into the characters involved in all this. Instead of reporting the perpetrator to the authorities, she gave him a glowing recommendation and got him a job at another school called the Albert Einstein Academy, where he went on to abuse no less than 6 children at the Albert Einstein Academy. That school, because it's not run by a bunch of Scientologists who cover up child SA, that school and the administration of that school reported Randy Jackson to the authorities, and he was prosecuted and put away, sent to prison for at least 18 years, I think. Do you want to know who prosecuted that guy? Reinhold Mueller. Now, since Reinhold Mueller investigated and prosecuted this pedophile, and since he's a very thorough investigator, I think if I'm a betting man, you guys, and I'm not, okay, but if I were a betting man, I would bet that Reinhold Mueller very much tried to find out the scope of the abuse, and that investigation would have led him to the Delphi Academy, and it would have led him to Karen Dale. And if I'm a betting man, which I'm not, but if I were, I would say that Reinhold Mueller probably met the equivalent of a stone wall in trying to get any cooperation from the Scientologists at the Delphi Academy. Now, what's interesting here is that Randy Jackson, the perpetrator of the child SA, not a Scientologist. And we all know, you longtime viewers of this channel and anyone who paid attention to the Danny Masterson trial know that Scientology will never report another Scientologist to the authorities. Scientology will not allow Scientologists to report other Scientology to the authorities for anything, whether it's rape, child SA, doesn't matter. What's interesting is that in this situation, the perpetrator of the crimes was not a Scientologist, and they still wouldn't report him to the authorities because they didn't want any of the investigation to drag Scientologists into it, to drag a Scientology school into it. They didn't want, so it's not just a matter of Scientologists not reporting other Scientologists to the authorities. It's not, it goes deeper than that. Okay, isn't it interesting that we have a very real possibility here that Reinhold Mueller, years before the Danny Masterson scandal came across his desk, had already likely been introduced to the disgusting reality that Scientology is an organization that closes ranks, obstructs justice, and covers up child SA. And if I'm a betting man, which I'm not, but if I were, I would bet that by the time the Danny Masterson scandal came across Reinhold Mueller's desk, and he saw that once again he was dealing with a predator who'd been protected by Scientology, that might have given Reinhold Mueller a certain fire in his eye for holding this organization and people associated with this organization accountable for covering up for predators. I did that video 11 months ago. Okay, so what has happened now? Well, let's just jump right into the announcement from the law firm. And okay, I'm going to pronounce this Sari Boscovich and Allard, although I'm not totally sure how to pronounce the name of that first attorney. Delphi Academy faces lawsuit over alleged sexual abuse and cover-up. Lawsuit claims inadequate protection against alleged abuse by ex-athletic director and coach. Delphi Academy, a private school in LA, is facing a lawsuit filed by the law firm of Sari Boscovich and Allard on behalf of a former student who allegedly suffered sexual abuse at the hands of Randolph Clifford Jackson, the school's former basketball coach and athletic director. The lawsuit, filed on October 18th, 2024 in LA County, alleges a disturbing pattern of abuse and institutional negligence. The lawsuit claims that John Doe, the former student, was repeatedly sexually molested by Jackson during the 2011-2012 school year. Jackson allegedly exploited his position to isolate John Doe, providing car rides and assigning him as an athletic department assistant. The abuse occurred on school grounds, including the athletics office, sports shed, and boys' restroom. The complaint alleges that Karen Dale, Delphi Academy's head, was aware of Jackson's misconduct, but failed to take appropriate action. Instead of addressing the issue, Karen Dale reportedly recommended Jackson for a position at Albert Einstein Academy in Santa Clarita after his contract at Delphi expired. Guys, they didn't even fire him. They didn't even put him on leave. They waited for his contract to expire and then gave him glowing recommendations so that he could find employment at another school, a guy they already knew had abused children. It's so sickening. I mean, even if I learned of this as a Scientologist, I would have found it sickening. It is unbelievable. That's why you will find Scientologists who don't believe that these things could have occurred, because this stuff is even unconscionable to Scientologists, most Scientologists. Okay, believe it or not, that's just, I mean, I'm speaking for myself here of how I would have reacted when I was still in Scientology. Okay. Instead of addressing the issue, I think I already said that. Well, listen, instead of addressing the issue, Karen Dale reportedly recommended Jackson for a position at Albert Einstein Academy in Santa Clarita after his contract at Delphi expired. This recommendation allegedly enabled Jackson to continue his predatory behavior, leading to the molestation of 6 additional boys between 13 and 17 years old at Albert Einstein Academy. Jackson was eventually arrested in February 2015 and sentenced to 17 years and 8 months in state prison. The lawsuit details Jackson's predatory tactics, including spending time alone with students, exposing himself, making sexually inappropriate comments, showing pornographic images to minors, lavishing gifts and meals on male students. Attorney Mark Boscovich condemned Delphi Academy's alleged failure to protect students, stating, "This is a classic case of passing the trash. A sexual predator could have been stopped, but instead he was given a second chance to harm innocent children. It's worth noting that Delphi Academy is part of a network of private schools that utilize study technology, a teaching method developed by Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard. The lawsuit seeks justice for John Doe and aims to hold Delphi Academy accountable for its alleged failure to protect students from sexual abuse. This case highlights the critical importance of institutional responsibility in safeguarding children and the potential consequences of failing to address misconduct allegations promptly and appropriately. By implementing evidence-based measures, schools can create a comprehensive approach to preventing sexual abuse and protecting students. It's important to note that no single strategy is sufficient on its own. A multifaceted whole school approach is necessary for effective prevention." Okay, and it goes on to give some information there. Here's the real reason I'm doing this video. I was contacted by the investigator who has been hired by this law firm and who's been working on this case, even before the lawsuit was actually filed. The investigator had already seen the video that I did 11 months ago and wanted me to put out a message to you, the audience, particularly you under the radar Scientologists, current Scientologists, former Scientologists. This young man being represented in this lawsuit is the earliest known victim of Randy Jackson. The children Randy Jackson went to prison for abusing were 6 children at Albert Einstein Academy. What the investigator in the law firm would like to get is people, they want to get in touch with people who have knowledge, are familiar with, who exactly knew what and when at the Delphi Academy. Karen Dale, we know about Karen Dale. The law firm already knows about Karen Dale. Karen Dale is not going to spill her guts to the investigators and is not going to be a cooperative witness. Karen Dale, by the way, is a very well-known Scientologist. I'm going to get into this a little more deeply in a few more minutes. But this doesn't, the request here is not only for people who worked at the Delphi Academy, members of the administration, school teachers. It is they are essentially looking for more witnesses who can testify in depositions, in affidavits, under oath as to prior knowledge of Randy Jackson's abusive behavior. And it says in this particular press release that the John Doe being represented in this lawsuit was molested at the Delphi Academy during the 2011-2012 school year. For this particular lawsuit, they're not asking for witnesses after that date. They're asking for witnesses before that date. So if that is you, or if you know someone who that might be, please get a hold of me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com, and I will put you in touch with the correct people. Scientology's destruction of families and Scientology's protection of sex predators are, to me, two of the most objectionable things about the family destroying human trafficking cult known as Scientology. More and more people who have been victims of that have been coming forward in lawsuits, and several of these lawsuits are doing quite well and are moving forward nicely and have cleared the initial obstacles that most Scientology lawsuits face. This lawsuit against Delphi Academy might as well be a lawsuit against the Church of Scientology. I know that legally it's not, but believe me, for all intents and purposes, it might as well be, especially as far as how Scientology will treat and react, will treat this lawsuit and react to this lawsuit. Let me just show you real quick. You've got Karen Dale right here, a very well-known Scientologist. I was in the Sea Org with two of her kids, Teddy Dale and Ryan Dale. You can see here we have 7 connections in common on LinkedIn. Let's see who they are. Linda Hubbard. Okay. Dave Cacavella. I was in the Sea Org with one of Dave's kids, Mike Cacavella. You can see me and Dave have 227 connections in common. Scientology really is a small world, you guys. Catherine White, we have 225 connections in common, including Yuri Minkoff, the older brother of Rebecca Minkoff, famous designer, current star of Real Housewives of New York. Yuri and his brother Max and his sister Rebecca, of course, second generation Scientologists, born and raised. Let's see, Cassie Comins, 161 connections in common. Okay. Yep. See, Uri Minkoff's connected to an awful lot of people. We have Marit Moon, otherwise known as Marit Hendrickson. Yeah. So like Karen Dale is a fixture of the Scientology community. Delphi Academy of LA. This is their website. I had a video that I was prepared to share with you guys of some of the news coverage on this when Randy Jackson was sentenced to prison. But at this point, I got to be honest, it's so disturbing. I don't really want to share the video. So, I mentioned Reinhold Mueller, the prosecutor who took down Danny Masterson, successfully prosecuted Danny Masterson. And the fact that Reinhold Mueller prosecuted Randy Jackson, guys, I want everyone to keep in mind that Reinhold Mueller is still leading a grand jury investigation into obstruction of justice in the Danny Masterson case. That grand jury, by report, is looking into Danny Masterson himself. It's looking into the Church of Scientology itself, and it's looking potentially into David Miscavige himself. Everything that occurred in the Delphi, Los Angeles scandal with Randy Jackson included more Scientology obstruction of justice. I don't know exactly if grand juries have the ability to expand their scope. Like if they're already looking into Scientology obstruction of justice into the Masterson case, I don't happen to know, legally speaking, whether he can also expand that into the Delphi affair. I just honestly don't know. But the idea that it might even be possible is getting me all excited and warm and tingly. But when we're talking about Scientology, Scientology has been successful in convincing courts that L. Ron Hubbard's words mean something totally different than what Scientologists know them to mean. And people can bicker over definitions or semantics or take L. Ron Hubbard's words in this context or that context. And Scientology can argue they mean one thing, and prosecutors can argue that they mean another thing. But the one thing in my mind that actually is an accurate reflection of what Scientologists believe L. Ron Hubbard's words mean is, and the reflection of that is the actual culture of Scientology. The culture of Scientology is created and dictated from the top down. And that culture of what is considered acceptable or not acceptable is a direct reflection of what Scientology's leadership believes L. Ron Hubbard's words mean. And the fact that Scientology, time and time again, covers up for sexual predators, including those who commit child sexual assault, is a direct reflection that is part of the culture of Scientology. It is a reflection of what Scientologists believe L. Ron Hubbard's words mean. And these words, what they believe, the beliefs that lead to this behavior is that, first of all, Anything that has ever happened to you ever is, to some degree, your fault. Yes, sure, it's partially the fault. Like if you are sexually abused, sure, the abuser is also responsible for that, but you are too. And in order for you to be healthy spiritually, you have to really come to terms with what your responsibility was there. What did you do to pull that in? What similar overt of your own did you commit earlier in time, even if in a previous life? And if you still feel misemotional, which is Scientology's word for anything anger, resentment, grief, hostility, fear, whatever, if you still feel misemotional about something that happened to you, you're still upset about it, it's because you haven't accepted full responsibility for what your role was in that. How were you responsible for it? What did you do to pull it in? So you have this victim shaming component. It's a very fundamental belief in Scientology, extremely fundamental belief. So there's that. Okay. And then you have this belief that only Scientology can fix what is wrong with a person that causes them to behave in horribly destructive, criminal, perverted ways. Only Scientology can do that. And sure, you can lock someone up in prison, but that's not actually going to fix anything. That's not actually going to fix anything, because Scientology would say that predator is fundamentally a basically good spiritual being. Okay. And a whole bunch of crap has been, has happened to that person. And, there's a whole bunch of crap sitting on top of that basically good being. But only Scientology can fix that crap and make that being have that being's basic goodness come through. And if you're a good Scientologist who actually believes in Scientology, wouldn't you want that being to be helped? Wouldn't you want that being to be helped? Don't you realize you're just dramatizing evil purposes by wanting to lock someone up in prison for having hurt someone? The right thing to do would be to care about that being, apply Scientology to them, and help them. Okay, there's also another idea that Scientologists have, which is psychiatry, psychology, and the mental health industry is pretty much the sole cause of all destruction and decline in this sector of the galaxy. And that if you send someone to prison, and Scientologists will do anything to keep someone out of the hands of the psychs. Well, that includes not sending someone to prison. Scientologists would say, once you send them to prison, they're just going to get into the hands of the psychs, and they're just going to enter a dwindling spiral of degradation and criminality. And that's not what you want either, right? That doesn't comport to the aims of Scientology, which is like a civilization without insanity, without criminality, without war, where honest beings, the able can prosper and honest beings have rights, or something like that, is what L. Ron Hubbard said the aims of Scientology are. Now, don't think about it too deeply, guys, because remember, this is a cult that we're talking about. And L. Ron Hubbard and Scientology don't have any problem sending non-Scientologists, usually, to prison. They don't. In fact, Scientologist Trish Duggan just got another Scientologist sent to prison. I haven't even had time to do a video about all that. So, guys, don't think about it too deeply. Okay, because you might have to confront that Scientology is actually a cult, and none of this really makes sense at the end of the day. But it is Scientology's beliefs and practices that lead to this culture of covering up for predators. And that's why you see it happening time and time again. And also, let's just get down to the most superficial, self-serving reason. Okay, Scientology doesn't want any of its dirty laundry exposed in any police files. They don't want it coming up in investigations. They don't want it coming up in lawsuits. They don't want it getting in courtrooms. They don't want to get it in front of judges and juries. That's the other kind of sick thing about all this thing, is I really do feel that L. Ron Hubbard started, I feel that he actually began with this goal of keeping Scientology dirt, keeping it, making sure it's always handled internally. And he sort of backfilled in all of a belief system that would justify handling all of your dirt in-house. Okay. I could go on and on and on about factors relating to all of this all day. But if I bury this request for witnesses in a video that's too long, it will defeat the point of putting out the request. Anyone who has any knowledge whatsoever, either personally or knows of other people who know about Randy Jackson, his activities at the Delphi Academy from the 2011-2012 school year and prior, please contact me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com, and I will put you in touch with the correct people. Okay, let's see. Yep. That's all I got on this for now, you guys. Stay tuned. Much more to come later today, this week. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.
Okay, if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.